Hello guys, this is Zombie and welcome on my channel. This is my first video and my first video on Napoleon. So I will do from Epic History TV, I will do the Napoleonic series. So to be completely transparent, I know quite a bit about this series and about Napoleon, but I wanted a refresher and to watch it again. So let's go. And I know that a lot of people like to see this series. So maybe some of them I will recognize seeing my video. So let's not lose more time and let's go.
An Epic History TV History March collaboration, supported by our publishing.
It was in Toulon that my reputation
In the summer of 1793, the French Revolution was entering its fourth year, and France was on the verge of anarchy. In Paris, political extremists had seized control of the revolution. They guillotined the king and imposed a reign of terror that dealt summary justice to all suspected enemies of the revolution. Hoping to unify the new republic, France's leaders had declared war on the Habsburg Empire. But the conflict quickly widened, and soon France was facing the combined might of Europe's leading powers, determined to stamp out her dangerous political experiment. Meanwhile, whole regions of France had come out in open revolt.
Yeah, it looks like everyone is ganging up and even inside with the royalists, but you have to understand that the revolutionaries were very violent. And they were brutal. They did a coup against the state, and they were imposing, as they said, harsh reign of terror. And then they, as they said, to unify the country, but not only to unify the country, but also to spread their revolutionary ideas. They were very imperialist and wanted to spread their ideas to all the other countries around, and by declaring war against them, both to unify and to spread their ideas through war. So logically, all the surrounding countries, as you see, there are monarchies, so, or at least most of them. I don't know if there are any non-monarchies, but Habsburg were monarchies, Spain also, Portuguese, Great Britain, etc. So yeah, the European monarchies weren't very good relation with revolutionaries, and as you can see, there are also royalists. So yeah, these people, I mean, France by this time was for a very long time, and I mean since the beginning of France, a monarchy. So they were supporters of the monarchy, or even it's not they aren't all just because they were for the monarchy, but also because the revolutionaries were very bad against the Catholic Church and against Catholic people. But these people were a big proportion of the population still, so they didn't want their religion to be oppressed. That was also an argument, and that not only their religions, but the government was very harsh. So yeah, naturally a lot of people rebelled against the revolutionaries that themselves rebelled against the monarchy for a set of reasons. So yeah, it was a pretty harsh moment for history, and a pretty huge turn in our history from, as I said, monarchy since the beginning of French history up to that, and at this moment we became a republic, and more or less we had some interruption, but more or less we stayed a republic until this day.
Horrified by the new extremism of the revolution. In August, the Republic suffered a further, potentially fatal blow when the city of Toulon
Just, I want to stop every time, but I mean, that's a reaction, so, and as I know a bit about the subject, stop probably a lot, but whatever. And also, you need to understand that, especially here, I think that's Vendée region, the Republican forces, they massacred all the people, not all, but a lot of people, including children and women, innocent people. So naturally, these people of the region were very against the Republic, not only for, as I said, just political regime disagreement, but also for religious reasons, and also because the Republic was very harsh and hurt the Vendéans, so the local people, for, I would say, not patriotic reasons, but for their they defended their people also.
The revolt. Toulon was France's largest and most important naval base in the south.
Sorry to stop again, but I have so many things to say. Toulon, I say sorry, but not so sorry. Toulon is still to this day an important naval base, I believe, in France. At least I know a civil base, what to say, important civil port, we would say, and probably also militarily. Yes, I think so.
Home to a
So
third
everything
of the
changed
entire
and
French
nothing
Navy.
changed.
But now rebels welcomed their old enemy, the British Royal Navy, into the port, led by Admiral Lord Hood, aboard HMS Victory. It was an extraordinary coup. Without a shot being fired, the Allies had crippled French naval power in the Mediterranean and gained a vital toehold on the French coast. All French forces in the area were immediately diverted to face this new threat and lay siege to the rebel port. 19,000 troops in all. But since most French officers had been aristocrats who were now fleeing the revolution in large numbers, they were seriously short of professional leaders.
Not only they were fleeing, but many were arrested and killed just because they were aristocrats. Yeah, the Republic was very monstrous in atrocities and the reasons and toward people that didn't really deserve that. As I said, in Vendée, what can you reproach to women and to innocent women and children? Just someone because they are from the aristocratic class. Why do you persecute them? I mean, you can change your regime, but persecuting them is something else. And also, all the aristocrats weren't even against the revolution. A large portion, to at least some extent, agreed to it. So what?
Their commander, General Jean-François Carteau, was a loyal Republican, but a court painter by trade with no military training. To make matters worse,
Genius, these guys. And make, yes, let's go to war, but we persecute all our aristocrats that have all the military experience, and we take a loyal Republican, but who has no military experience.
one of his few professional officers, his artillery commander, Colonel Don Martin, had been badly wounded on the approach to Toulon. Antoine Salicetti, a Corsican deputy of the National Convention in Paris, recommended as his replacement a fellow countryman, a 24-year-old artillery officer who was passing Toulon en route to the front, named Napoleon Bonaparte, or Bonaparte. Bonaparte was a professional soldier, but he'd seen almost no active service, Nevertheless, Salicetti was impressed by his manner, and most of all, his politics. Bonaparte had just written a political pamphlet, a short story about a young artillery officer who berates his fellow diners for their disloyalty to the Republic. General Carteau thought it wise to accept Deputy Salicetti's recommendation. The great port of Toulon was well defended by city walls, and a dozen outlying forts and redoubts. They were held by 2,000 British soldiers and sailors, 6,000 Spanish troops, 6,000 Neapolitans, and 800 Sardinians. Artillery would be the key to overcoming these formidable defences. But when Bonaparte was put in command of the artillery on the 16th of September, he found himself with few cannon, not enough trained gun crews, and a shortage of gunpowder and shot. With relentless energy and determination, Bonaparte transformed the situation, requisitioning unused guns, training infantrymen to work them, setting up a new forge and workshop, and arranging transport from Marseille of 100,000 sandbags for constructing new batteries. Through hard work, he was ultimately able to build his force up to 64 officers and 1,500 men, manning 100 cannon, howitzers and mortars.
As you can see, you only need sorry, you only need like a guy smart, proactive, and taking initiatives, and it changed everything. The guy didn't have enough officers and competent officers. He didn't have enough guns and gun crews, and he was able through by proactively trying to fix the situation. He was able to find solutions and to improve it. That's like that. When you see it like that, it doesn't appear that impressive. When you know how the average general acts, or here he wasn't general, but let's say the officers and the higher-ups, how they generally act, and you see someone who is so proactive and taking the right decision, it's a very valuable asset. This guy is already showing incredible qualities as a leader, as a military leader.
Within days, Bonaparte had established 2 new forward batteries with good revolutionary names, La Montagne and Sans Culottes, which brought Toulon.
Sans Culottes isn't a good name. Sans Culottes were the Parisian radicals that were beating people in the street, etc. So they were the most radical, violent, and bloodthirsty people. It's not a great reference. It's not a good reference.
In a harbour within.
But it is smart from him because he is giving. How you say in English? He's giving. He makes things for a political reason that will benefit him. Like you give revolutionary names. Before, as you saw, he was selected by his fellow Corsican deputy to be at this post because he was very Republican, and now as you can see, he's rubbing them in the right direction by choosing this kind of name. And that's also something interesting about Napoleon, is that he was kind of opportunist in the sense that he tried to appear in a good light of the people in power, or even the common people, depending on the situation. Like for example, here he is playing the pro-Republican. In Italy, he played the good Catholic. In Egypt, he plays almost like a Muslim guy. He tries to have the favor of the elites and of the people by displaying different ideas to please them. So that's a part also of his genius.
Range, and forced Admiral Hood to move all his ships closer to the port. Bonaparte also came up with a plan, one that would allow the French to bypass most of Toulon's defences and secure the rapid victory the Republic so desperately needed. Bonaparte argued that if Fort L'Aiguillette could be captured, which looked out across the harbour, he could fill it with heavy guns and shell the British and Spanish fleet at anchor. Admiral Hood would be forced to abandon the port and take with him the Allied soldiers that Toulon relied on for its defence. General Carteau saw the merits of Bonaparte's plan, and on the 22nd of September, French forces attacked Montcaire. But to Bonaparte's exasperation, while he'd argued for an attack by 3,000 men, the indecisive Carteau committed only 400. Not only was the attack easily repulsed, but it alerted the Allies to the danger. Within 48 hours, they'd reinforced Montcaire.
Here you see what I say about being proactive. You see also something is being hesitant. This Carteau was indecisive. My English, as you can hear, my English isn't that good, especially orally. That's why I do a video in English to improve. So, he was very indecisive, and it cost him the attack. And that's also one thing when great quality of Napoleon is that he was very committed, and was able to be very bold and taking risk, because he knew that it was worth it, while being too cautious can be a big disadvantage, as you see here.
With thousands more troops, and built a new fort named Fort Mulgrave, bristling with 20 cannon. The position was now so strong, the French nicknamed it Little Gibraltar.
There is only one possible plan: Bonaparte's.
Finally, in mid-November, an experienced professional soldier arrived to take command of French forces, General Dugommier. He saw at once that Bonaparte's plan was the only way to take Toulon, and gave it his full backing. Bonaparte, promoted to major, got to work, overseeing construction of several more batteries in preparation for the decisive assault. One forward battery was so exposed to enemy fire that men refused to be sent there. So Bonaparte renamed it La Batterie des Hommes Sans Peur, the battery of men without fear. And suddenly there was no shortage of volunteers. It was an early display of Napoleon's genius for inspiring his soldiers, one that would serve him well in the years ahead. On the 30th of November, the Allied Land Forces commander, British General Charles O'Hara, tried to seize back the initiative, leading an assault on the new French batteries facing Fort Malbousquet. At first the attack was successful. The batteries were overrun, the French guns spiked. But a counterattack with much greater numbers, and led in person by General Dugommier and Major Bonaparte, drove back the Allies.
Peacekeep Brits.
General O'Hara himself was shot through the hand and captured. 12 years before, he'd surrendered to George Washington at Yorktown during the American War of Independence. Now he got to surrender to Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah, but it's give up on land. You can't do anything. You're good on your ships, but yeah, no, not on land. Go back to your ships and fight on the waves. If there is a British watching this, I'm joking a bit, but I have to.
In the early hours of the 18th of December, in howling wind and driving rain, the French launched a major assault on Fort Mulgrave. The wet conditions made muskets useless except as clubs or with bayonets. Bonaparte led the second wave in person. Amid fierce hand-to-hand fighting, his horse was killed under him, and he was bayoneted in the thigh by a British sergeant, a wound that came within inches of ending his life and radically changing the course of history.
That's where you see that everything's held by a thin line. I don't know how to say that, but you get the idea. It's crazy how everything can change for if a small detail change in history. And I've watched this episode several times. I mean, in the past, but I always wondered if this fact that you couldn't fight, you couldn't shoot because of the whoever favored the defenders or the attackers. I always, a priori, I would say it favors the attackers because the defender you are strong because you defend and you can attack before the guys can really harm you. The attack because you are kinda protected, and then you lose a bit of your defensive advantage. But I don't know totally, just assumption.
Finally, the Allied garrison was overwhelmed, and Mulgrave fell to the French. Fort L'Aiguillette and Tour de la Balaquière were soon also in French hands.
Go
By
back
the
to your
following
boats,
afternoon,
Brits and
the French
Spanish.
had 10 heavy guns in L'Aiguillette, placing the Allied ships within range. Admiral Hood could not expose his valuable ships of the line to such a threat. He had no option but to order an immediate evacuation of the fleet and garrison from Toulon. Small
Classical
Spanish
Brits
and British
running to their
teams
boats.
raced to destroy all the French ships and naval stores that they couldn't take with them. But amid the chaos of their departure, 18 ships of the line were allowed to fall back into French hands. A badly missed opportunity. Many French citizens of Toulon were desperate to escape aboard the Allied ships, knowing that the Republicans would inflict terrible reprisals on the city. British and Spanish
You're right. They I will
ships took as
continue.
many as they could, about 14,000 in all, but scores were drowned amid chaotic and desperate scenes. Others were left to face the wrath of the revolution. Republican troops entered the city the next morning, and executions and firing squads began almost immediately. For the next 2 weeks, about 200 were executed every day. Allied propaganda later blamed Bonaparte for the atrocities, but there's no evidence he...
Yeah, no, boy, revolution was horrible, and yeah, they didn't need Napoleon to do that. And in fact, as we see after with his career, he was people make him like a dictator, but I mean, he was kind of a dictator, etc. You can judge whatever you want, but yeah, no, in terms of roughness against especially civilians, things like that. Nah, but revolution did not need him, and there were wars. And it wasn't his method later. I mean, he wasn't the nicest guy, and I guess the guerrilla, etc. It was the order, ruthless reprisals, but he never, when he took a city, he never executed the civilians for no reason like that. Revolutionaries did. There you can see how horrible
was
these
directly
people were.
involved.
The Republicans, should they, at this point.
France's young republic was now fighting back on all fronts. And with the fall of Toulon, the Allies had...
And you see Vendée, yeah, they were killing massacres, were even more hardcore, yeah. They fought back against their massacred so many French people, this evil republic.
lost a golden opportunity, a chance to stir up further revolt, deal a lasting blow to French naval power, perhaps even overturn the revolution. But instead, the French Republic had weathered one of its greatest storms, in no small part thanks to the remarkable judgment, energy and courage of one 24-year-old artillery officer,
Damn, that's
now
true, he was
promoted
young.
Brigadier General in recognition of his extraordinary service at Toulon. Napoleon Bonaparte had taken his first step on the path to greatness. And for Europe, 21 years of almost constant war awaited. Our sponsor, Osprey Publishing.
And the wars, a lot of it. I know that a lot of people say. I mean, there is a first layer of people that don't know anything say, "Oh, it's Napoleon that did all these wars." First step of ignorance. When you then there is people more knowledgeable that say, "No, a lot of wars were actually declared against him, and so he mainly defended himself. Although he did some aggressive wars, he did start some wars." But in fact, the thing is that the legacy of wars, the spiral of wars, started with the revolution. That's when with the Republic. That's the Republic that declared the war on Austria. It led to the first coalition war until the seventh coalition war. So in fact, that's neither. I will not blame Napoleon or the coalitions, the European coalitions against him, but I would blame the Republic because they started the war, etc. Although, as I said, I blame them for starting, but still, like Napoleon did the aggression war, that whatever, let's not say more. But and also the coalitions, but yeah, the spiral was started by French Republic, not by Napoleon or the coalition. So these two versions we hear often I don't think they are the most accurate ones. So whatever, it was a nice video. I hope that you liked it. That's my first video, so sorry if there is issues with audio. I'm still not that good speaking orally English, but I'm practicing right now. So, but I hope that you somewhat liked it, that you learned some things, because I added a bit of context, and especially as a French citizen, as a French person, can give some insight about my own country, and so it was cool. I always like to watch Napoleon stuff. I like him as an historical figure. He's fascinating. I mean, for everyone, whether you like him or not, he's impressive. Yeah. So that's the end of the video, clearly, and I won't talk no more. So just hope that you have a great day, and See you next time.